Dad yelled, "You're not the son I wanted. You never were." Mom wished she aborted me. I straightened my jacket, told them I'd stop existing, and walked out. They later came when everything around them collapsed, begging for a chance I didn't promise to give. Hey, Reddit. My family treated me like their built-in problem solver my whole life. One day I finally said, "Nope, not doing this anymore," and walked out. Turns out, they weren't ready to lose their free labor. It got messy fast. Before all that, here's how it started. My name's Jordan Holt. I'm 27, and I work as a junior operations coordinator at a logistics company I've lived on my own for 3 years now. But most mornings I still stopped by my parents' house before work. Not because I wanted to. It was habit obligation. Years of being the one who handled everything. I grew up in a house where responsibility was something you earned by being the only one competent enough to handle it. My dad, Dennis, has always been loud and impatient. My mom, Marianne, has the quieter kind of sharp. She doesn't yell, but she knows how to make a sentence land harder than a scream. And my younger sister, Kayla, 20, has been treated her whole life like she was made of glass. I ended up being the one who kept everything running. That morning started like every other. I let myself in with the spare key they never bothered to hide properly. The house looked the same. Clutter on the counter, mail piled in a crooked stack, a cabinet door hanging off its hinge for the 3rd week in a row. I grabbed a screwdriver from the drawer and fixed the hinge. Quick job. Then sorted the mail into bills, junk, and things Kayla should have opened weeks ago. She was still asleep, like usual. I was about to leave a note about the overdue electricity bill when I heard drawers slamming in the living room. "Where the hell is my wrench?" Dad muttered, loud enough for the whole block. I stepped into the doorway. "What wrench?" "The one I left right here." He pointed at an empty spot on the coffee table, like it was a crime scene. "I haven't touched your stuff," I said. He grunted, yanked open another drawer, then another. The louder he got, the more it was clear this wasn't about a wrench. "It's always the same with you," he said, voice getting sharper. "You walk in here acting like you're helping, but all you do is screw up what I need." I didn't react. "I literally fixed your cabinet door 10 minutes ago." He turned toward me, face tight, jaw set. "You're a disgrace." The room got quiet in that way, where you can actually feel it. He'd said things before, nothing new, but this one landed differently, because he didn't look angry. He looked like he believed it. Before I could answer, Mom walked in from the kitchen. She must have heard enough to know what was happening, because she didn't even ask what the argument was. She just crossed her arms like she'd been waiting for her moment. "Of course he's a disgrace," she said. "Look at how he turns his back on his own family." I raised a brow. "I'm here every morning." "Yeah," she said, voice flat. "And somehow you still make everything harder." There it was. The usual guilt routine. I didn't flinch. Dad kept going. "You're never around when we actually need you. All that money we spent raising you." "Raising me?" I laughed once under my breath. I raised myself. That set them both off. They started talking over each other. Dad blaming, Mom nitpicking, bouncing every failure in their life back onto me like I was some kind of easy target I let them talk. I wasn't, not anymore, but they hadn't caught up to that yet. Then Mom stepped closer, eyes locked on mine, and said it like it was just another normal sentence. "I wish I aborted you." And the room went dead silent again. No screaming, no tension-breaking sound, just that line hanging in the air. She didn't look shocked that she said it. If anything, she looked satisfied. I looked at her, then at Dad. My voice didn't rise. "Then you just lost me." That was all. I picked up my jacket from the chair, slid one arm in, then the other, no rushing, no shaking hands. I didn't slam the door when I left. I just walked out. Once I got to my car, I didn't think. My hands moved on their own, steering toward Greenview Park, the place I used to bike to as a kid when the house felt too loud. Back then, it was the only place where I could hear myself think. Turns out that hadn't changed. The old hot dog van was already there. Harlan, the guy who ran it, gave me a small nod as I walked up. "Usual?" he asked. "Yeah." He handed it to me without another word. That's what I liked about him. Didn't pry, didn't judge, just treated everyone the same. I took the hot dog and sat on the bench I always claimed when things got too much. Third one from the left, half under the big oak tree. Then I pulled out my phone. First thing, canceled the loan payment I'd been covering for Dad and Mom for the last 3 years. Then Kayla's tuition payment. Then I opened the emergency contact info for all the accounts tied to their address and removed myself from every single one. Next, I logged into the family phone plan and disconnected my card. After that, I deleted the apps I used for their grocery orders, bill reminders, paperwork filing, and ride scheduling. No hesitation, no guilt, Just finally doing what I should have done years ago. When I finished eating, I tossed the wrapper, stood, and walked back to my car. I drove home to my apartment, dropped my phone into the kitchen drawer, and closed it. The apartment was exactly how I liked it. No clutter, no noise, just my space. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop inside the kitchen drawer where I'd tossed it the night before. I let it go for a minute, then finally opened the drawer and checked the screen. 36 missed calls, 22 texts, all from the same 3 people. Nothing surprising. I didn't open a single message. I turned the ringer off, put the phone in my pocket, and got dressed for work. Same black polo, same work boots. Routine, predictable, clean. The drive to the office felt unusually quiet. The kind of quiet most people would call uncomfortable. For me, it felt like oxygen. When I got to the logistics center, Trevor was already at his desk, tapping through emails with that half-distracted look he always had before coffee kicked in. He glanced up when I walked in. "You're in early," he said. "Traffic was light," I answered, booting up my computer. Trevor squinted at me for a second. "You look focused." I raised an eyebrow. "Focused is bad?" "No, man. Just different. Usually you look like you ran a marathon before showing up." He wasn't wrong. Mornings at my parents' house used to drain me before the day even started. Today I felt sharper, more awake. I didn't explain anything to Trevor, and he didn't push. That was the good thing about him. He wasn't like most people who needed every detail. Midway through my first task, my phone started vibrating in my pocket again. I ignored it until break, then checked the screen. Kayla had blown up my messages with a full thread of paragraphs. "Where are you? Mom is crying nonstop because of you. Dad's losing it. You need to fix this right now. Why are you acting like this is normal? Answer me." The entitlement practically leaked off the screen. I blocked her number without replying. Before I could lock the screen, another call came in. Unknown number. I answered only because it might have been work-related. "Jordan?" Marianne's voice came through immediately. Fake shaky, fake wounded. "You're scaring us. Why would you do this to your own family?" I didn't give her a chance to ramp up. "Wrong number," I said, and hung up. The rest of the day was normal. Emails, scheduling, inventory issues, forklift noise echoing through the warehouse. Nothing dramatic, nothing stressful. For once, everything felt exactly as it should. When my shift ended, I drove straight to Greenview Park. The sun was low, the sky that late-day orange that made everything look warmer than it was. Harlan's hot dog van was parked in its usual spot. He saw me walking up and nodded. "You look lighter today." "Guess I am," I said. He didn't ask why. Didn't dig. Just handed me my usual and went back to wiping down his counter. That was all I needed. Quiet acknowledgement, no interrogation. I ate on the same bench as the day before. People walked dogs, jogged, chatted, lived their lives. No chaos. No yelling. No guilt trips. Just people minding their own business. When I finished, I tossed the wrapper and drove home. The apartment was exactly how I liked it. Clean, quiet, and mine. I showered, made a simple dinner, and settled on the couch to check some tasks for the next workday. Around 9:15 p.m., the banging started. At first, I thought someone upstairs had dropped furniture, but then it came again. Hard, sharp, directly against my front door. "Jordan!" Kayla's voice cracked through the hallway. "Open the door!" I didn't move. She banged again, louder. "We can't pay the bills. Mom's freaking out. Dad's yelling. You did this? You did this!" I stood and walked to the door but didn't open it. I didn't even unlock it. I just stood close enough for her to hear me clearly. "Go home," I said, tone steady. "I don't owe you anything." There was a long pause, like she couldn't process how calm I was. Then she exploded. "Are you serious? You're just gonna hide in there? You're unbelievable. You're—" "Go home," I repeated. Same tone, same distance. Silence. Then a frustrated, choked sound. Half cry, half anger. She hit the door once with her palm. "Fine," she snapped. "Stay in there. Don't expect us to be here when you decide to crawl back." I didn't respond. A moment later, her footsteps stormed down the hallway, echoing all the way to the stairwell door before it slammed shut. I waited a few seconds, then turned off the hallway light and went back to my couch, no shaking hands. No guilt. No pressure. Just the same calm I'd woken up with. For the first time in a long time, I could hear myself breathe. The next morning started like any other workday. I woke up before my alarm, took a quick shower, grabbed a granola bar on the way out, and headed to the office. No phone calls because my phone was still on silent, still clogged with messages I had no interest in reading. At work, everything felt normal. Inventory reports came in late. A truck driver complained about a routing change. Someone mixed up two pallet labels. Same routine problems. Nothing complicated. I spent most of the morning checking paperwork and organizing new shipment schedules. Trevor walked past my desk around 10. You good today? Yeah, I said, scanning a barcode sheet. He shrugged. You seem steady, less distracted. Clean break, I replied. He didn't ask for details. He knew better than to pry. By lunchtime, I needed a little air. Not because of stress, just habit. I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside. The weather was clear, a bit chilly, but good enough to walk a few blocks. Our building sat near a commercial stretch with a few construction sites scattered around. Some new office complex going up, lots of scaffolding and orange cones everywhere. I walked the same route I usually took. Down the block, across the street, past a line of food trucks that were only half open at that hour. Nothing unusual. A couple workers in hard hats were yelling measurements at each other across the scaffolding. A forklift beeped while reversing city noise, plain and simple. I was checking the street before crossing toward a shaded sidewalk when I heard someone above shout, "Heads up!" I didn't even have time to look up. Something heavy thudded against my left shoulder and part of my ribs, knocking me sideways. The world went off balance for a second, like someone pushed the ground at an angle. The impact wasn't enough to drop me instantly, but I stumbled back and hit my palm against a street pole to steady myself. A metal tool, maybe a wrench, maybe something similar, clattered to the pavement beside me. A construction worker cursed from above. Shit, hey, you okay down there? I took a breath. My ribs stung and my shoulder burned, like someone had pressed on a fresh bruise, but I stayed upright. I'm fine, I said, voice even. A couple people walking nearby rushed over anyway. Man, that thing fell hard, one said. You sure you're good? I'm standing, I answered. Still, the site manager jogged over from the other side of the sidewalk, worry all over his face. Sir, we need to get you checked. You took a hit. Before I could refuse, two of my coworkers who'd been walking back from the deli saw me and hurried over. Jordan? What happened? Tool fell, I said. I'm fine. They didn't buy it. The manager insisted on calling emergency services just to be safe. My coworkers backed him up, and I wasn't in the mood to argue over common sense, so I let them guide me to sit on a low concrete step while someone called it in. The pain in my ribs sharpened a little when I inhaled, but it was manageable. No panic, no drama. The EMTs arrived fast, checked me over, and said I should go get x-rays to be sure nothing cracked. I nodded, let them help me up, and rode with them to the nearest clinic. The clinic was small, just a few rooms, a reception area, and that sterile smell every medical building seems to have. They checked my vitals, poked around at my shoulder, and sent me for quick scans. The doctor came in afterward and told me it looked like bruising, maybe a minor sprain, but no fractures. Lucky, he said. I tend to be, I answered. They gave me some ice, wrapped my shoulder, printed discharge papers, and told me to rest for the day. I sat on the exam table for a moment, before pulling my phone from my pocket for the first time since morning. More missed calls. It looked like chaos condensed into digital form. I tapped one voicemail without really meaning to. It started mid-cry, Kayla's voice shaking, talking about bills, dad yelling, mom pacing, something about, you can't just disappear. I deleted it instantly. Another voicemail was my mom's voice, dramatic as ever, claiming they didn't know what happened to me, and how could I be so selfish? Deleted, I stared at the screen for a second and muttered, predictable. Then I turned the phone off entirely and slipped it into my pocket. The nurse came back in, handed me my paperwork, and asked if I needed someone to pick me up. I told her no, and walked out on my own. The fresh air outside felt colder on my skin, sharper against the bruised shoulder, but it felt good. I took a cab back to my apartment, went upstairs slowly. Rib pain was annoying but not serious, and unlocked the door. Inside, everything was exactly the way I left it. Quiet, organized, mine. I set the paperwork on the counter, grabbed an ice pack from the freezer, and sat on the couch. There were no alarms, no frantic footsteps, no one yelling from another room, just a place where nothing demanded anything from me. I rested my shoulder, leaned back, and closed my eyes for a few minutes, letting the stillness settle. I didn't feel guilty for not calling anyone. I didn't feel obligated to update them. They weren't part of my life anymore. And the silence felt better than any apology they could have given. The day after the clinic visit, my shoulder still ached, but it wasn't enough to keep me home. I turned my phone back on and left it on silent, then drove to work like usual, parked in my regular spot, and headed toward the entrance with a coffee in hand. Nothing felt off. No warnings, no tension. Just another morning. I had barely stepped inside when the front desk radioed my department. Jordan Holt, can you come to the parking lot? Someone's asking for you. I already knew who. I turned around and walked back out. As soon as the automatic doors opened, I heard Dennis's voice echoing across the lot loud. Angry. The kind of yelling that carries over engines and concrete. There he is, he shouted, pointing at me like I was a criminal caught on camera. You think you can just ignore us? You think you can run off and let your whole family burn? A couple of employees stopped mid-step to stare. I walked toward him slowly, steady, not reacting to the attention. You shouldn't be here. You need to come home, he barked. Fix this mess you made. I didn't make anything, I said. You're dealing with the consequences of your own choices. He stepped closer, face red. Don't talk to me like I'm some idiot. You showed up at my job yelling in a parking lot, I said. You're acting like one. That hit him harder than I expected. He jabbed a finger at my chest, but I stopped him with a look before he even touched me. You don't control me, I said. Leave the property. He looked stunned for half a second, then came back twice as loud. You ungrateful little... You think you're better than us? You think you can walk out and pretend you don't have a family? Your mom hasn't slept since you left. Your sister is losing her mind. And you're just standing here, acting like none of it matters? People were really staring now. A forklift operator near the loading bay stopped to watch. A few office staff stood at the entrance pretending to check their phones, but obviously listening. Dennis kept going, voice cracking with rage. You think you're so tough. You think you're some big man now. Well, guess what? You're nothing without... Mr. Holt? HR's manager, Lisa, stepped in between us. You can't be here. This is private property. Dennis ignored her. This is between me and my son? No, Lisa said. It's between you and trespassing laws. You need to leave. Now. Dennis looked like he wanted to argue, but 3 other staff members had walked over, and he wasn't stupid enough to try anything with an audience. He pointed at me one last time. This isn't over. For you, I said. Not for me. He stormed off toward his truck, slamming the door hard enough to make the whole frame shake. Everyone watched him peel out of the parking lot. Lisa turned to me. You okay? I'm fine. Do you need to file a report? No. She hesitated, probably waiting for something emotional or shaken. But when I just stared back calmly, she nodded and walked away. I went back inside, clocked in, and started my tasks like nothing happened. About an hour later, Trevor walked in from his break with a confused look on his face. Dude, your dad? He left, I said. I heard half the warehouse talking about it, he said. You handled that better than I would have. Not hard, I said. He did most of the work shouting. Trevor smirked and went back to his desk. For a while, things stayed quiet. No calls, no surprise appearances. I figured Dennis had burned himself out and was probably at home venting to Marianne, repeating the whole speech with extra dramatics. Then Trevor's phone buzzed. He glanced at the caller ID, frowned, and stepped outside the office area. Through the window, I could see his eyebrows shoot up in disbelief. Then he started pacing. When he came back in, he looked annoyed enough to punch a wall. Dude, your mom called me. I set my pen down. She what? She called me, he repeated louder. I don't know how she even got my number. She starts rambling about how you've abandoned your responsibilities and how you're leaving your family to drown, asking me to convince you to talk to them. I didn't react. What did you say? Trevor shook his head. I snapped. I'm not gonna lie. I told her to handle her own problems and stop dragging you into their mess. I said you're not their servant. I let out a slow breath. Not anger, just irritation at the whole situation. Figures she'd try that. You're not mad I said something? No, I said. You said what needed to be said. He nodded, still fuming. Good, because that woman is exhausting. Work wrapped up normally. No more calls. No more shouting parents in the parking lot. No more HR involvement. But the whole thing left a buzz in the air, like the warehouse after a fire drill. Everyone back in place, but still wired. After clocking out, I drove to Greenview Park. Same bench, same familiar space. I bought a hot dog, sat down on the bench, and let the quiet settle around me. The storm on their end had started. Mine was already over. Word must have gotten around the Holt house that I wasn't budging, because after the parking lot scene, the calls slowed down. Not because they accepted anything, because they were too busy falling apart. I didn't see it firsthand, but the evidence showed up piece by piece. The first sign came on a Wednesday morning when a past due utilities notice showed up in my email. I used to be the backup contact for the electric company because my parents never checked their inbox. Even though I'd already pulled my card and removed myself as a contact, A stray automated reminder still slipped into my inbox. Last chance disconnect warning. Not my problem anymore. A day later, Kayla accidentally sent me a photo that wasn't meant for me. A blurry picture of the kitchen lights off, Dad yelling at her with a flashlight in his hand. She unsent it immediately, but I'd already seen the notification preview. I didn't respond. By the end of the week, Trevor and I were loading shipment data into the system when he glanced up at me. "You look different lately." "How?" I asked. "You're not carrying that weird tension you used to have. Your shoulders aren't up to your ears anymore. Cutting dead weight works wonders," I said. He laughed. "I'm stealing that." Life was straightforward for me. Work, home, park, quiet. For them, it was the opposite. From what trickled through, everything I used to handle was crashing down one task at a time. Kayla couldn't figure out her student portal without me spoon-feeding her. Her text to me stayed unread, but I could see the first few words previewed. "I don't know how to submit this form. I missed a deadline. Dad is blaming me." I blocked that new number too. Then the storm hit harder. On Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring, but something told me to check the voicemail. Marianne's voice filled the line, furious and frantic. "Your father hurt himself. He slipped in the garage trying to fix the generator because you weren't here to help. He can't move his wrist. You need to come drive him to urgent care. This is your fault, Jordan." I played it again just to make sure I heard the tone right. Anger, not concern. Stress, not urgency. Same old pattern. I called her back once. Only once. She answered on the first ring. "Jordan, finally. Call an Uber or call Kayla." I said, "I'm done." She sucked in a sharp breath like she'd been slapped. "How dare you?" I hung up. 30 seconds later came a flood of messages, but I didn't bother reading them. I blocked the number and went back to what I was doing, comparing car listings online. I'd been driving the same old sedan since college. It ran fine, but I could afford better. And with all the chaos behind me, it felt like the right time to upgrade. I found a clean used SUV with low miles, good price, and the dealership was only a few blocks from work. I scheduled a visit for the next day. Saturday morning, I test drove it. Smooth engine, clean interior, no weird smells or rattles. I bought it within an hour. When I pulled into my apartment lot, it felt like a step forward. Not symbolic, not dramatic, just practical improvement. Something for me, finally. Inside the apartment, I kept the momentum going. I'd been sleeping on an old bed frame for years, mostly because I never took the time to replace it in between working and taking care of everyone else's issues. So I ordered a proper oak frame and a new mattress. Next, I took on the living room. I moved old furniture out, swapped the coffee table, replaced a lamp, rearranged the shelves. The place looked like an actual adult lived there now, not someone who always rushed in and out doing errands for other people. By Sunday evening, the place had a different vibe. Calmer, cleaner, organized, not a retreat, not an escape, just mine. Monday morning, I showed up to work in the new SUV. Trevor walked past as I parked and whistled. "Damn, look at you." "Needed an upgrade," I said. He tapped the hood lightly. "You look good, man. Like you finally slept more than 3 hours this week." "I did." "Seriously," he said, lowering his voice. "I don't know what you cut out of your life, but keep cutting." I smirked. "Dead weight." He laughed again. Exactly. Work flowed easily that day. Clear tasks, simple problems, predictable pace. No unexpected explosions, no guilt-loaded interruptions. My phone stayed on silent, but I could see the missed calls stacking whenever I checked the lock screen. More missed calls. All ignored. All irrelevant. Around lunchtime, Trevor nudged me. "Your parents still blowing your phone up?" "Probably." I slipped the phone into my drawer. "I don't care." "Good," he said. "They sound like a lot." They always were. After work, I drove to Greenview Park. Harlan's van was there, steam rising from the grill. He handed me my usual without me asking. "You've been looking steadier every day," he said. "Feels like it." He nodded toward the bench. "Keep going." I sat, ate, and watched the light fade. The calm wasn't forced. It wasn't fragile. It was just the new normal. And the chaos on the other side, that belonged to the people who created it. The week after Dennis hurt his wrist felt strangely quiet. Not actual silence. My phone still buzzed nonstop whenever I forgot to turn it face down. But the kind of quiet where none of their noise got through to me anymore. I worked, slept, ate, and kept to my routine. Nothing knocked me off balance. But people like my parents don't let things die out. When they can't get attention one way, they find another. And this time, they decided to get creative. It happened on a Thursday night. I had just finished cleaning up after dinner, when my phone lit up with a call from Trevor. Not a text, an actual call, and he never called unless something was serious. I answered immediately. "What's up?" "All right, don't freak out," he said, already sounding irritated. "Your parents are at my apartment." I paused and sat down on the arm of my couch. "What do you mean at your apartment?" "Like, outside my door. Right now." I could hear the shouting in the background, muffled but aggressive. "They've been banging on it for the last 5 minutes. They're yelling your name like you live here." I closed my eyes briefly, not out of stress, just annoyance. "What are they saying?" "That I stole you. That I turned you against them. They're demanding I call you and force you to talk to them." He huffed a quick breath. "I'm this close to losing it." "Open the door a crack," I said. "Tell me what happens." I already did. "Hang on." The phone muffled as he set it down for a moment. I heard the hinges creak, then Trevor's voice, loud and sharp. "Stop harassing me. Fix your own lives. Jordan doesn't belong to you." Dennis's voice blasted in from the background. "You think this is funny? We know he listens to you. Tell him to stop acting like an—" The door slammed hard enough that it echoed through the phone. Trevor picked it back up. "I'm done with them, man. They crossed a line," I said, calm as ever. "I'll handle it." "They're still screaming in the hall," he muttered. "Don't open the door again," I said. "If they don't leave, call your building manager or security." "Already did. They're on their way." "Good," he exhaled. "Just wanted you to know these people are out of their minds." "I know," I said. "Thanks for calling." When the call ended, I stared at the blank screen for a moment, then typed a message to my parents. No emotions, no explanation, just a single final line: "Do not involve my friends again. Last warning." I hit send and set the phone face down. 10 minutes passed, then 20. No response. For the first time in a while, the silence actually meant something. Not peace, just the pause before a storm switched directions. The next morning, a new text came through on my phone from a number I didn't recognize. Kayla's writing style was obvious, though. I moved out. "They won't stop fighting. This is hell." I deleted the message without responding. Not my circus, not my rescue mission. By Friday evening, I needed a break from the city, so I packed a small bag, got in my SUV, and drove 2 hours out to a quiet lakeside town I'd visited once in college. No plans, no obligations, just open roads, quiet air, and space that belonged to me. I rented a small cabin for the weekend, walked the trails, ate at a diner that served good pancakes, and slept without hearing a single phone buzz. It was the first time in years that my entire day wasn't scheduled around someone else's problems. When Sunday afternoon rolled around, I drove back feeling sharper, steadier. I stopped by Greenview Park before heading home. Harlan looked up from the grill as I approached. "You look like someone who finally drew the line," he said. "I did." He nodded once. "Good. Some people only understand boundaries when they hit them face first." "Yeah," I said. "Something like that." He handed me my usual without charging me. I didn't argue. Sometimes respect is its own language. While I ate on my bench, the breeze shifting the leaves around, I wondered what was happening back at the Holt house. I didn't have to wonder long. Information had a way of reaching me even when I didn't want it. That evening, a cousin I never talked to sent me a DM that was basically one sentence. "Your parents are losing it. They've been fighting nonstop since Tuesday." I didn't reply, but the message told me enough at home. The situation had escalated into something ugly. Dennis and Marianne weren't just arguing. They were exploding. Yelling matches. Blame pinging back and forth. Kayla caught in the crossfire. Furniture slammed. Doors slammed harder. All the pressure they used to dump on me had nowhere else to go now. So it turned inward. The final shove came on Sunday night. I didn't hear it myself, but the cousin updated the message thread. He told her she ruined everything, said he regrets staying with her. She snapped back. They're both losing it. They'd turned on each other completely. And for once, none of it had anything to do with me. 4 days passed with complete silence from the Holt house. No calls, no new numbers, no shouting in hallways, just quiet. Just the kind that didn't feel temporary anymore. By then, they'd run out of people to lean on. Kayla had moved out. My cousin said they were too busy tearing into each other to keep pretending everything was my fault. On the 5th morning, while I was making breakfast, my phone lit up with a single text from an unknown number. Marianne again. Obviously. "We need to talk. We want to take responsibility." I stared at it for a moment, not surprised, not moved, just noting it. This wasn't their usual tactic. Too short, too calm, too direct. If they were trying something manipulative, they would have used more words. I typed back one sentence. "Greenview Park, 6 p.m. Nothing else." The rest of the day I worked like normal, handled scheduling, updated manifests, checked in with the warehouse. Trevor asked if things had calmed down. For now, I said. You gonna meet them? Yeah. He nodded like he understood everything without needing the details. When 6 rolled around, I drove to the park. The air was cool, the sky fading toward evening. Harlan was closing up his cart, wiping down the grill. He spotted me. Big night? He asked. Something like that? He didn't ask more, just gave a slow nod and packed up. That was why I liked the man. I went to the third bench under the tree, the same place I'd sat the day I walked out. A few minutes later, I saw them approaching from the parking lot. Dennis and Marianne. Both of them looked worn down, like the fight had been drained out of them by force. No sharp posture, no puffed-up pride. Just 2 people who'd taken too many hits in a row. They stopped a few feet away. Can we sit? Marianne asked. Go ahead. They sat on the other end of the bench, leaving space. Dennis looked at the ground first, then at me, then back at the ground. That alone told me how far things had fallen in their house. Marianne was the one who spoke first. We messed up, she said. No soft tone, no spin, just plain words. We've said terrible things. Things I shouldn't have said to anyone, especially my son. Dennis nodded slowly. We put everything on you. Things that weren't yours to carry. We depended on you because you always handled it. And when you finally stopped, we didn't blame ourselves. We blamed you. Marianne folded her hands. Our house has been a disaster without you. But not because you left, because we didn't know how to do anything on our own. They weren't crying. They weren't trying to make a scene. They just looked tired. Dennis cleared his throat. I've been angry for a long time. At work, at money, at myself. And I took it out on you because it was easier. And because you never pushed back. He paused. But you did. And we deserved it. Marianne looked up at me. No excuses. No, but you did this. Or but you said that. We were wrong. Completely wrong. That was new. The old version of her wouldn't have made it 3 seconds into an apology. Without redirecting blame, I listened without interrupting. No nodding, no reassuring, no giving them any emotional payout. Just listening. Dennis took a slow breath. We understand why you walked out, and we understand why you haven't talked to us. Marianne added, quieter. We don't expect you to come back. We don't expect you to fix anything. We just needed to say it. Silence settled for a moment. Not tense. Just still. When they finished, I answered the same way I'd handled everything since the day I left. Calm, direct. Controlled. I'm not promising forgiveness, I said. I don't know when or if that happens. But I'm willing to have a conversation if you stay respectful. They both nodded immediately. No arguing, no defensiveness. Of course, Marianne said. Fair, Dennis added. We didn't hug. We didn't suddenly become a picture-perfect family. We sat there for a few more minutes, making simple, neutral talk. Weather, work, things that didn't poke at anything raw. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile, just steady. Eventually, they stood up. Thank you for meeting us, Marianne said. Dennis looked at me one more time. We'll give you space. Real space. Not the kind we pretend to give. Good, I said. They walked back toward the parking lot. No yelling, no demanding, no guilt thrown over their shoulders as they left. Just 2 people finally facing the mess they made. I stayed on the bench for a while longer, watching the sky dim behind the trees. The air felt cleaner somehow, or maybe I was just breathing easier now that the conversation was done. No tension left, no noise buzzing in the back of my head. Just the park settling into early evening. On the drive home, my phone buzzed twice. Not a call, 2 messages. The first one was from Kayla. I'd unblocked her earlier, mostly so you never let me apologize wouldn't become her new excuse. I know I wasn't good to you. I'm working on stuff. Anyway, here. And right under it, the second message appeared. A random meme, a cat stuck in a laundry basket with the caption, help. Classic her. Not emotional, not dramatic, not a full apology. But the closest she'd ever come to admitting she was wrong without hiding behind yelling or excuses. I smirked. Not sentimental, not soft. Just acknowledging the shift. For once, nobody was demanding anything from me. Nobody was pulling at me. Nobody was using me as a crutch. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was real. And that was enough to close that chapter of my life the right way. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.